Good morning and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are doing good, my dear friends. Today is 26th of February 2020. Day is Wednesday, and the first article that we are going to talk about is Counting Birds Together. Very important article on avifauna. But before that, I would like to introduce all of you to our pen drive and tablet courses, which are designed by the best faculties of our country. They are available for various different competitive exams, and you can purchase them from our portal, that is StudyIQ.com. To download the PDF of today's lecture, do visit my FB page, or you can join my Telegram channel. Please make sure that you share this lecture with other students. Hit the like button if you have learned something from today's discussion, and please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I have a very important notification for you guys. It's about 27th February's the Hindu lecture or the Hindu analysis videos. We'll talk about it later on, but first of all, let's talk about Counting Birds Together. Now, the State of India's Birds Report 2020. This is a report, and it is out now. It is available. It's in public domain. And this report is important because it is the first collective attempt in India to understand and assess how the avifauna are doing. It's basically about the status of bird. Are they increasing, decreasing? What about the birds in tropical jungles? What about the birds that we find in different setups, like in urban area, in jungle, or in forest, in dark jungles? When I say dark, I'm talking about like evergreen forests. You find them on mountains. You find birds everywhere, isn't it? So we have different types of birds on our planet, and this report, State of India's Birds Report, is specifically about birds in our country. Now, pay attention to this line here. While there are several species, here the word several is important, while there are several species, including globally threatened ones whose populations are doing reasonably okay, you can say, more bird species are showing decline in population than are showing population stability or increases. So basically, there are several species. There are globally threatened ones. They are doing reasonably okay in our country. So it's a good thing, reasonably okay. But we are talking about just few or several species here. But the matter of concern is that more bird species are showing decline, and that is a matter of concern, isn't it? If we go through last 20 years, then we find that nearly 50% of the bird species have declined, and this is a big thing. These declines are particularly acute for certain groups of birds, like birds of prey, migrant shorebirds, birds of forests, grasslands, endemic birds of the Western Ghats. Endemic basically means these birds, their origination has been Western Ghat. You find them in Western Ghat. Sometimes you find them in different parts, but basically they are from Western Ghat. So there are different types of birds, and think about it, isn't it? Just observe the difference in a pigeon and an owl, or the importance of vultures. Few days ago we were talking about vultures, remember? They play a very important role in cleaning our environment, and the use of this pesticide and injecting these animals with these painkillers are killing our vultures. They may look ugly, but they are very important for our ecosystem. So we talked about them. We talked about crows, sparrows a few days ago, remember? So to the list of 67 globally threatened Indian bird species previously identified by the IUCN. Can you give me the full form of IUCN in the comment section? Now, earlier on, 67 globally threatened Indian bird species were there. Now we have 34 more. So the total now is 101. So this is a matter of shame for our country. So far things are, generally speaking, negative, right, as far as this report and findings are concerned. Now, there are a few positives as well. Two distinctive features. The first one is that the information it builds on comes from citizens like us all. There are more than 15,500 bird watchers who took part in this report, or they helped in collecting information. They have collected some 10 million plus records and data points goes back to 1970s. So it's a multi-institutional collaboration, you can say. Government as well as NGOs, individuals, stakeholders, bird watchers, they took part in collecting information. So the second point is the reports, data and analysis are in the public domain, inviting critic and further refinement. The good thing is many people took part in it, and the data is openly available, so we'll find articles on it. We may find in future films made on this thing. Birds will be discussed at various different platforms in future. They are being discussed at present as well, and this discussion that we are doing on our birds, right, this itself indicates that the wheel is in motion now. Right, people will think about it, people will act on it, and there are over 1,300 species of birds in India. While some are loud, colorful, some you find them in daytime, some in nighttime, right? Some are easier to detect and others are quite shy and nocturnal. We have, as we know, different types of birds. They play a very important role. Birds are nearly everywhere, right? They are colorful. You cannot ignore them, right? They are adorable. They sing. They display their colors, their features, their feathers, right? Their beaks. And birds have always been there around human beings. If you go through the story of Ramayana, then you find the role of Garuda. And in today's world, we know that birds play a very important role in seed dispersal and predation and other things. So it is important for us as human beings because we are the ones who have destroyed this world, isn't it? So it is important and it is our responsibility and duty as well to make sure that we look after our birds. And if we look after our birds, then we will means there are so many things that we have to do now because we have destroyed things at various different levels. So looking after birds will help us in conserving our forests because they play a role in seed dispersal and other things. They are part of this food chain as well. So that's everything as far as this article is concerned. Now let's talk about a test of governance. But before that, I would like to give you a brief about this crisis in Malaysia. It's about a political crisis in Malaysia. Like Malaysia was in news as far as India-Malaysia relations are concerned. I'm talking from that point of view. It was in news because of this palm oil imports. India used to import huge amount of palm oil from Malaysia, but now we are not doing it because Malaysian Prime Minister, or I would say ex-Prime Minister of Malaysia, because the reason why we find this article here is that recently this Prime Minister, or the person who was Prime Minister so far in Malaysia, he has resigned, and he is somewhere around 94 years in age, and he's been ruling this country for a very long period of time now. So basically he was very, you can say, negative statements came from his mouth on CAA and Kashmir on Article 370. So India is not happy with this person and his regime. So India has stopped purchasing palm oil, and palm oil is a very important product for Malaysia as well as far as its export basket is concerned, and India was a very important customer of Malaysia, but they have lost this opportunity. So anyway, this is the reason why it was in news. Now the political news or new development is that this person has resigned, and as I told you, he was ruling this country for a very long period of time. So what happens, just imagine what happens, right? When you have a prime minister or president who is ruling your country for a very long period of time, you'll find some rivals. There will be someone who will be not happy with this regime, and then you find a sort of revolt, or you can find a sort of opposition brewing around, and that's what has happened. So let's wait and watch. But the thing is, he's 94, so means there should be a limit as well, like for how long you can rule it, because a person who is 94 in age, right, God bless his health, but the thing is, naturally you are going to be less energetic, or you would be having some health issues, so less energy will be spent after administration and management. I hope this is just one point, right? It's not necessary, but this is just something that we have to consider. There should be a retirement age as well, but anyway, the people of Malaysia will decide. Let's talk about a test of governance. Now, this is something that we have to decide, like what we want in our country. It's about communal violence in parts of Delhi, and earshot away from the nerve center of the government of India, has claimed 13 lives and left over 150 injured. So many videos are out there in WhatsApp, and it's been going on for a very long period of time now. It's not something that has happened out of a click or snap, right? It's a planned thing. You have two groups predominantly. One is a pro-CAA demonstrators, and then you have anti-CAA demonstrators. CAA demonstrations are going on for a very long period of time now. Government has clarified its stand, and there are people out there, they are not happy with CAA, so they are protesting. There are a few people who are protesting in a proper way. There are few groups who are indulging in violence. There are pro-CAA demonstrators, right? Some of them, they are behaving properly. Some of them are indulging in violence. So the most important thing here is the role of government, particularly Delhi police, right? Delhi police proved itself woefully inadequate in controlling this thing, because when you have this sort of things going on, you should have your IB, that is Intelligence Bureau, very active. You should get all those ground reports, like what's going on, whether things will go out of hand, whether things will turn into violence. So you should have all these things, and you should be prepared well as well. Now, policing and law and order in Delhi are the responsibility of Union Home Ministry. And one of the most important line that I find in this editorial is this one: communal violence anytime, anywhere happens only due to the inefficiency or collusion or both of those in power. Let me repeat. Communal violence anytime, anywhere happens only due to the inefficiency or collusion or both of those in power. I'm not blaming any particular party here. You have two basically parties here. So I'm not with anyone. I'm not against anyone, right? You have AAP in Delhi and you have BJP at center. Of course, you can say that the police and everything is part of this central government, but that's okay. The most important thing here is that we have to understand that we cannot support those people who are indulging in violence. Either they are with CAA or if they are against the CAA, it doesn't matter. Violence is something that should not be allowed, and it is the responsibility and duty of police to make sure that after violence takes place and then you are controlling it, that's a different thing. You should do everything possible to make sure that we don't see this sort of situation, because I don't think this will end here. It is going to continue. No one wants this thing to happen again, but this will happen again if police will behave as it has behaved, or if it is not. I won't say doing it duty, but I would say it inefficiency. If we don't work on this inefficiencies, then we may see this sort of situation again. And it's a matter of shame. Like, we have a very important guest, Mr. Trump, and his family is in Delhi, and on the same day we find violence in the city. So it gives a very bad impression. Then you have more psychological than an empowering voter option. Very important article. It's on none of the above button that you find right at the bottom of your EVM. Now, the recently concluded Delhi Assembly elections were the 45th Assembly poll since the inception of the none of the above option in 2013. So Supreme Court came out with this. Supreme Court ordered to include this nota button in our EVM, and this nota should be an option given to our voters. That's what the Supreme Court said back in 2013. It was basically introduced in 2013. I think it was said in 2012, but it was introduced in 2013. So, but anyway, none of the above option is available, and I'm sure many of you might have seen it or might have exercised it as well. Now, roughly 1 in 200 voters of Delhi opted for nota in last 6 to 7 years, and national average is 1%. If we take all elections, the national average is 1%, which is not that big. But the thing is, this nota is a paper tiger, or you can say it's a toothless option. Why? We are going to talk about it. In 2013, India became 14th country to institute negative voting through nota. However, nota is not a right to reject. It's something that it's basically, as I told you, paper tiger or toothless option. Now, why it is that? If we go through the statement of former Chief Election Commissioner and a very big name in our country, S.Y. Qureshi, he wrote in one of his articles that even if there are 99 nota votes out of total 100, a candidate X gets just one vote. X is the winner, having obtained the only valid vote. So this is not fair at all, isn't it? Just imagine if you have 100 votes out of this 100, total 99 are for means people have pressed 99 people have pressed nota, and just one pressed for that person X. Now X will be declared as winner. So the rest will be treated as 99 will be treated as invalid or no votes, and that's the reason that it's not a right to reject. It's basically that voters can go and exercise their right to vote. They feel that they are part of this whole mechanism. Early on, what used to happen, people used to avoid elections because they were not happy with the candidates, but now they can at least go and press nota. So, but many of them, they don't go at all. They don't bother because they know that nothing will happen if they press nota. In 2018, a former CEC T.S. Krishnamurthy has recommended holding elections again in those constituencies where the victory margin is less than that of the total number of nota. So if we have this sort of situation, this 99 is to 1 situation, then there should be a re-election. It's not that 99 and 1. Even if it is, let's say, 51 nota and you have 49 votes, right? Normal votes and 51 nota, then as well there should be an election. Now, a PIL has been filed in Madras High Court seeking the full right to reject in the place of nota. And we have two important decisions here. The first one is of June 2018 by Maharashtra State Election Commission. It issued an order that said that if it is noticed while counting that nota has received the highest number of valid votes, there will be a re-election. And this Haryana State Election Commission went one step ahead further by adding that if this nota votes are more than the normal votes, then there will be a re-election, as well as those candidates securing less votes than nota would be barred from contesting in that particular re-election. They can take part in future elections, but not in that particular re-election. Interestingly, in Makassar, Indonesia, the only candidate in the 2018 election for mayoral received 35,000 less votes than nota, which forced a repeat election in only candidate, right? And there was a repeat election in 2020. So that's what we need as well. We need to empower this nota option. And here we have a very interesting suggestion. Rather than nota, we can have NOTB, that is none of the below. So imagine this is your EVM here, right? At present, we have nota button here, isn't it? This is our NOTA. So we should have none of the below, NOTE button right at the top. Ignore this one, right? Let's get rid of this bottom button and let's have it right at the top so that people can exercise it more. We don't have any research backing it, but rather than putting it right at the bottom, it is important that we keep it right at the top. So if people, if they want, they can press it and it will make it a bit more visible. That's what the idea is. But still, we need to do a little bit or we can at least give it a go, isn't it? We can keep it right at the top of this EVM. So we are done with this article, and basically we have gone through nearly half of them, like we have done with 4 articles. Now let's talk about 2 rising powers in 2 different eras. It's about the rise of China and the challenge ahead of USA. We have talked about these 2 countries earlier on as well, so I'm sure regular students, I don't have to go into those details, those tiny details, because you know the big picture now, isn't it? You know the tiny details as well as big picture. Here in this 2 rising powers in 2 different eras, we have some interesting viewpoints. We are going to talk about something new today. So let's crack on. So the rise of China, it's a big thing. Of course, we know that China was more likely is where we used to be. Back in 1949, it was an agrarian, feudal, backward country, but now China is totally different. It's an industrial as well as a technological powerhouse now, and it is directly. It's not. When I say challenging, I'm not saying that China is deliberately challenging, but the rise of China is definitely a challenge for USA, and it is also said that in near future China will take over USA to become the world's largest economy. This economic rise has had strategic consequences as well. So it's very natural with every human being as well. We find this thing that when you are a student or something, when you are not earning, let's say, then you live a different life. But when you start earning, when your food security, your financial security, residential security, all these things are met, then you aspire for something higher. So same thing happens with a nation as well. When a country is fighting with poverty, when the country is trying to achieve education, health, etc., and when the country achieves all these things, not 100%, you may find some things here, ups and downs even in developed countries as well. Like we cannot say that education system all across the board in USA is equal and up to the mark. You may find some flaws as well in various different parts. But anyway, so basically China was hungry once upon a time. Hungry, when I say, I'm talking about hunger of technology, of money, of health, education, development, etc. But now China has achieved a surplus. It has achieved many things. It's not a developed country, right? Interior parts of China is still, these parts are still backward. But overall, China is doing reasonably good. So now it is aspiring to become a power, a superpower, or you can say a dominant force. And if we compare what happened earlier on, if we go back in the history, then we find that things with or something similar and something different as well, with the rise of Imperial Germany in the 19th century and then Soviet Union in 20th century. We saw this Cold War. You know the history of Cold War, so not going into the details. But before this fall of Soviet Union in 1991, we used to have two big powers, USA and USSR. So this whole competition between them, this cutthroat competition, this Cold War era, is something that we have seen. And after this fall of Soviet Union, we had only one superpower, and that is USA. If we go back in the history of Europe, then we find that earlier on UK was a dominant force. Then France, forget about the Spain and Portugal, they used to rule like 300-400 years ago. But then UK and France became dominant force, and then Germany, as industrialization took place and Imperial Germany's rise as an industrial and military power led to this Franco-Prussian War of 1870, and then this Germany became a very important force, and the rise of Germany led to this World War One, and then shame and fall of Germany, or this defeat, led to World War Two and things. Again, not going into too much history here, just being on the periphery or big picture, bird's eye view. We can say that there was a tussle between, on one side you had France and UK, on the other side there was Germany, and just like this UK and France, Germany was also aspiring to have colonies in different parts of the world to extract resources and to become a bit more richer, a bit more industrial, and a bit more powerful country. So this led to this war games started, and something similar we find between China and US as well. But it's not that brutal, it's not that open. Alright, it was more barbaric during this World War II and World War I and II, and before that era it was a bit more bleak. But nowadays things are different. The tactics and tools are a bit different. The tensions between Imperial Germany, and this is about then and now, the tensions between Imperial Germany and Britain were primarily a result of race of new economic territories between colonial powers, and Lenin called it inter-imperialist rivalry. Both China and US are closely integrated into global economic system, and the thing that is different is that they are each other's best trading partners. China is still a growing power, and in last 40 years China hasn't fought a war. So The question is, are we in a new Cold War era? Yes, we are. China is not seeking to build an ideological bloc against the USA, but USA's attempts have failed as well. NATO is not that powerful in this region. You have Russia here. China and Russia are good friends now, and Russia and USA are arch rivals. Then this anti-China strategic alliance is not working. USA trying to curb Huawei and other technological companies has not helped, or it has not worked out. Many European countries, allies of USA, they are going ahead with Huawei to set up their 5G network. So it's not going to be that easy for USA to handle Russia and this rising dragon, or this muscular dragon that is getting heavier and heavier every passing year. So last one of the day is rights, duties and the constitution. Very interesting article. Now, during emergency time, Indira Gandhi's regime tried to weaken Supreme Court, tried to weaken the constitution, and it tried to make government very strong, right? And at that point of time as well, she talked about, or her regime talked about, fundamental duties and anti-national activities were talked about. And just in recent past, our CJI, the current Chief Justice of India, has talked about our duties and rights. He said that real rights are a result of the performance of duty. So if you perform your duty, you can enjoy your rights and things like that. But in this article, we find a very interesting viewpoint. The first thing to note is that as citizens, there exists a wide range of duties that bind us in everyday life. Like our duties are towards the state or government, towards other individuals. Like when we pay our taxes, we are doing our duty. When we are not indulging ourselves in violence against other citizens, then we are, or other individuals, we are doing a very important duty. So breach of this legal duties triggers financial consequences or even time in jail. At any given time, therefore, we are already following a host of duties which guide and constrain how we may behave. It will guide us as well as it will constrain us. It will keep us in a sort of limit. Now, this logic of rights, for that we have to understand two important points, or two important concerns emanating the Constituent Assembly. We know it very well. Under British Raj, under this colonial regime, Indians were treated as subjects and not as citizens. So this British people, they designed the laws in such a way that we were treated as subjects. We were lowly in front of British Raj. So our constitution framers, they were very well aware about this thing, and they were also, this Holocaust memory was quite fresh in the minds of these framers. So this is the main reason that they came out with this fundamental rights. The first role of the fundamental rights is to create a bulwark against dehumanization. That dehumanization will not be allowed. Every human being, no matter who they were or what they did, if you are a judge or if you are a layman, right? It doesn't matter if you are working in a field, or if you are a president. Every single human being, right? They have fundamental rights in our country. All citizens, they enjoy fundamental rights. Second, the framers were also aware that they were inheriting a deeply stratified and riven society. Our society is not even equal today. We have discrimination, isn't it? Untouchability is still there. Manual scavenging is going there. We have this caste issue, and then we have regional issues and economical problems, and some areas are rich, some areas are poor, some people are rich, some families are poor, and things like that. We still find it today. So the colonial regime had not been the only oppressor. The excess of gender, caste, religion had all served to keep masses of individuals in permanent conditions of subordination and degradation. So the second role of rights was to stand against hierarchy. That this hierarchy that was created, this steps or ladder that was created, this fundamental rights are basically, standing or protecting people from this hierarchy and this ladder. through guarantees against forced labor, against untouchability and things like that. So this twin principle, anti-dehumanization and anti-hierarchy, reveal the transformative purpose of the fundamental rights chapter. And this two things, this two principle plays a very important role. And because of this fundamental rights, because of this rights that we get from our constitution, I'm not saying we are a equal society, but we are getting there slowly. One day, hopefully, we will reach there, no doubt. So we will get there, of course, one day. But without this fundamental rights, just imagine if we still have this hierarchy, if untouchability and all these things are legally available, and if there are if citizens, a few of them are seen as subjects and few of them are seen as citizens. If we have this sort of discrimination, then we'll never achieve that equal society. So first of all, we need this protection. We need this fundamental rights. Once we can enjoy, once we can start living with, once we can feel these fundamental rights, that our rights are protected, then we can fulfill our duties. Then we can talk about our duties. And let's go through these two lines here. It was only with this guarantees could an individual rise from the status of subject to that of a citizen. First of all, we have to get out of this cocoon of subject and enter into the zone of citizen. And once we are citizen, and should be clear by now that it was only after the transformation had been wrought that the question of duties could even arise. Once we get our FRs, then we can talk about our FDs. And that's basically everything in today's discussion, dear friends. On your screen, you can see a few news items. Most of them are about India and USA. Make sure you go through them. You can download the PDF of today's lecture and go through them. So I've already asked you one question on IUCN. The second question is, during World War II, we had like two teams, global teams, right? I'm not giving you the names. You have to give me the name, Team 1, and there was Team 2. So you have to give me the name of these two teams and also tell me the names of the countries that were part of this Team 1 and part of the Team 2. So this is your second question. You have to do a little bit of research for it, of course. And the notification that I was talking about is that on 27th, that is tomorrow, I am traveling. So there will be no lecture from me tomorrow. But this 27th February is the Hindu newspaper analysis. I will deliver it to you on 28th. So on 28th February, first of all, you will get analysis of 28th February's newspaper. And later on in the afternoon time, or maybe around evening time, I will come out with 27th February's analysis, right? Because I'm traveling for a very important marriage that I have to attend with my family. So sorry for any inconvenience, but I promise I will clear up the backlog. So enjoy your studies. God bless you all. Jai Hind.